This presentation is on the BP oil spill. On April 20th, 2010, there was an explosion in the Gulf of Mexico that led to the sinking of the Deepwater Horizon oil rig. The BP oil spill is one of the worst oil spills in the history of the United States, which left 11 workers dead. For almost 3 months, oil was coming out of the Deepwater Horizon oil rig still. The estimated amount of crude oil that came out of this oil rig over that 3-month period is nearly 3.19 million barrels, which leaked into the Gulf of Mexico. This picture is from CNN and shows what occurred after the initial explosion of the Deepwater Horizon oil rig. The initial environmental effects were harmful to the ecosystems. However, the location of this oil rig is unique in the fact that the oil rig was located beyond the continental shelf and in more deep water than other accidental oil spills from rigs have happened before. With that being said, researchers are still not certain what the long-term effects of the Deepwater Horizon oil spill will be on the environment due to the unique location in the deep water. There was initial damage to the coastlines and shores, which is both long-term and short-term. However, there was not as much initial harm done to the coastlines as originally thought due to the unique location of the oil rig. Researchers found what they are calling sea snot, which seems to be a mixture of oil that was leaked from the Deepwater Horizon oil rig and phytoplankton as well as other organic matter. The substance was thick and occurring in the deep water, which is where the oil rig was. This caused issues for the researchers to understand at first what the substance was, since they were not equipped to collect samples and have never seen anything like this occur after an oil spill. Eventually, researchers discovered that due to the unique location of this oil rig, the oil took more time to reach the surface of the water after the explosion, which in turn created the sea snot. This was met with skepticism since the agencies that were originally sent to aid in the oil rig explosion expected that the oil would just float. Furthermore, it was then confirmed that oil drifted into the deep water, creating this snot, which the effects are still unknown. Additionally, this unknown substance that formed after the oil explosion sunk to the seafloor with compounds that are hard for microbes to consume. In this section of the seafloor, researchers found worms, sediment dwellers, jellyfish, and other animals dead due to the environmental effects of the Deepwater Horizon oil rig explosion. In addition to species being harmed by the Deepwater Horizon rig spill, there is damage to specific trees. These trees were mangrove trees. These trees are on barrier islands. The mangrove trees helped keep the islands together. However, the oil caused damage to the mangrove trees and caused them to die over the years. Once the mangrove trees died, the small barrier islands began to fall apart, and over the years, they have and could have further disappeared due to the damage done to the mangrove trees that was caused by the oil rig explosion. So, effects on society. The location of the Deepwater Horizon oil rig caused negative effects on communities that were close to the oil rig. Specifically on the Louisiana coast, the oil spill has caused a long-term issue to their society and their community that goes beyond just the environmental effects of the BP oil spill. This community is extremely dependent on the seafood industry, which provides most of their income. However, the oil spill devastated the seafood industry due to the harm done to the species in the seafood or the animals in the Gulf of Mexico. This in turn led to individuals that were economically dependent on the seafood industry having their livelihood destroyed. There were other industries that were majorly impacted, such as the tourism industry in places such as Alabama and Florida. Tourists left the beaches and the areas which hurt these communities economically. With that being said, the tourism industry has only been impacted short term since tourists have come back to spend their vacations and money in these areas. This is unlike the seafood industry since they are still struggling due to the connection with the environmental effects, which could be a long-term issue for those communities that are dependent on the seafood industry. So then, theoretical perspective and solutions. The biggest theoretical perspective which ties into the BP oil spill is the green-collar crime. Green-collar crime is defined as a crime that is committed against the environment. BP committed a crime against the environment through the Horizon oil rig spill. This is considered one of the biggest environmental disasters that has ever occurred in the United States. BP claims that the Gulf of Mexico is all good and clear since the oil spill. However, this is not the case, which means they are misinforming the public. Furthermore, BP has had to face the judicial system. With that being said, they have had to pay damages for the natural resources that were harmed by the oil spill. There's also a liability case against BP, which could exceed $13 billion. This is due to their gross negligence and misconduct, which resulted in the oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. This is more than the $28 billion that BP has had to spend on cleanup and paying damages to aid in the economic harm that was done from the spill. The solutions are difficult to have. There were short-term solutions that aided in the initial cleanup of the oil spill. These included controlling the spill through physical barriers, skimmers, and dispersants. Additionally, the beaches and the coastlines were cleaned up. However, due to the uniqueness of the spill, with it being in the deeper water, past the continental shelf, there's unknown long-term effects. The biggest solution for this is to continue research to understand the consequences and then respond as well as act to aid in helping the environmental disaster. BP also changed their safety procedures for all their rigs around the world to help prevent this disaster from occurring again. So here are my references, and thanks for listening.